This is me and my brother, and this is where we were born. We moved to the US in the early 2000s, straight to South Central LA. One bedroom apartment, one bathroom, 4 people. Our parents worked 7 days a week, every single day. They made sure we had food like beans, rice, chicken, and on a good week, Little Caesars.
Pizza.
We didn't grow up around money. We grew up around hard work, and that taught us everything. Today, people see the business, the warehouse, the cars, but they don't see what happened before. We couldn't even buy a warehouse when we started. DACA made it even harder. No loans, no credit. So we did what we always did. We figured it out. We built this business from scratch. This is how starting a small business changed our life. And if you're willing to struggle, to learn, and keep showing up, it can change yours too. I don't even know where to begin, because honestly, we shouldn't even be here. If you knew where we came from, you would understand that we didn't come from much. I know that we grew up in Mexico, came to this country. I was 4, my brother was 6, and life just happened at an instant. I think everyone now sees what has been accomplished, which is, the business, the warehouse, the cars, the house, but they don't see what happened before.
Yeah, because before it was very different. I know that we moved in the year 2000 to pretty much Slauson and Figueroa.
Fake.
To a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment.
Yeah.
And it was pretty small. Honestly, I would think that it's probably the size of this. Because it was a small, probably bigger.
How much square feet? It was like 600-700?
No, it was smaller than that. And so we really never had our own, you could call it privacy, of our own place. We were all jam-packed into that room. I know my parents stayed in the living room. I know there was times where we switched. We were in the living room when we had the little, the bed, the roll-up bed. It was bedtime, you could say.
Yep.
We used to roll it out, and then that's where we used to sleep. But then in the morning, we just used to roll it back, put the, not the rubber bands, what do you call those, the elastic things?
Yep.
And put it in the closet. And so that's how, when we in the living room, that's what we were doing in the living room.
Yep.
And so back then, looking at it now, I mean, it wasn't like a struggle because we never really struggled when it comes to getting any food or any shelter. I know my parents struggled and they stressed about paying rent, but we never felt that. So it was something that at least I'm appreciative. I think we're both appreciative of the effort and the sacrifice that they went through, the stress that they took on from us, for us, better said. I really appreciate that. But that was essentially how we grew up, how we started.
Yep.
I really appreciate everything now. I really appreciate the things that we have now that we didn't back then. The cars, the fact that they're not breaking down.
Yep.
The fact that we have our own, we can go to our own rooms or our own place, that we have our own place. Those I really am appreciative of. And that's one of the things that I realized, that people that have always had that, it's hard for them to appreciate that. It's kind of like saying, when was the last time that you appreciate that you had 10 fingers?
Yep.
There's some people with, like with less, people that don't have an arm. When was the last time we appreciated that we have 2 arms? And so that's one thing that for sure I am really appreciative of the things that we have now, because back then it was nowhere near to now. And so definitely has shaped me to be more appreciative and more grateful for the things that we do have. Remember back then, every day when we used to go to work, my mom used to make us lunches: beans, rice, chicken. That was it.
Yep.
Nothing else. Maybe some ground beef occasionally, but now we have the opportunity and the options to just go, Gavilan, even restaurants, without really much thinking about it much. And so definitely, I appreciate that a lot. And then I remember that whenever we used to eat back then, it was like an exciting thing, Wednesday is Little Caesar Day.
Yep.
So those little things, it was good days, good times. I really liked it.
Yep.
Through working, through other jobs, that's how we got in the vinyl wrap game, in terms of automotive films and the automotive industry, let's call it that way. And so it was just through different things that we did, through being uncomfortable in WG, having to talk to people, through the different experiences that you had door to doors, through phone calls, through e-commerce, through all these experiences. And then we just found, an industry to where all that experience that we acquired, it just made sense to go ahead and do that thing. Yep. So then that's how it started. Okay, let's get pre-cuts. We have online experience, so let's start it. And then little by little, we just started growing from there.
Yep.
And even we started growing also before pandemic times.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic definitely pushed us, it propelled us, but we started, you went full-time before
Yep.
Pandemic even started, and I did too.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, in that year, we got someone else.
Yeah.
So it was doing good.
Yeah, because pre-pandemic, our highest month was $60,000 in revenue in 1 month. And I know once pandemic hit, it slowed down a little bit, but then it just shot up and it doubled to 180 a month, which is crazy.
When we did start this business, I know the first things that we started selling were the trademark stuff,
Yep.
things we weren't allowed to. So then that kind of really forced us, and we got some notifications from them that stopped doing that. And so we just shifted and adapted to kind of what we are doing now. The more of the pre-cuts for the larger pieces of the vehicles. Those were our first products. And then I know that around that time also the pandemic hit, and so that's when really things started taking off from there.
I think it was almost immediately. And it was because it was such a fast growth that 2019, first year in business, we did 100K. Second year in business, we jumped to 700K, which was 2020. And that's when everything changed. Because I know that in our first business, we got a bunch of debt, we got a bunch of loans. So in 2020, because of this business, we were able to pay off the loans.
Everything, yep.
Yep, I know that we were looking into buying a house, but because of the pandemic, the prices shot up. So we were hoping that they would come down. Spoiler alert, it didn't. So instead, we rented a house.
A house.
And then we moved our parents out of South Central.
Yeah,
and
after 20 years.
After 20 years.
That was a freaking proud moment. Because having my mom not to walk through the fake street, my dad being comfortable, like the fact that you didn't need to worry now about losing your parking. The reason why sometimes we didn't want to go out, or my parents didn't want to go out, is because they're going to lose the parking.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy, right?
Yep.
To think about, but and so it was awesome. It was great.
Yeah. So I think 2020 is just the point that everything changed. So everything prior to that, I think it led up to 2020, where we just changed people's lives, our parents' lives for the better.
I know that after the business started doing better and we started doing better, there was a lot of positive and a lot of wins that we did have. I know we bought the house. We bought it at a pretty good time. It was kind of like still going up to where I think without doing anything, it gained several $100,000 of positive equity. So that we ever sell it and we want the money, we're gonna get a couple at least 100,000 of the equity. So that was a positive win, and the fact that we didn't have to really worry about money, the fact that we could just focus on the business, I think was definitely a big win. The fact that we could afford the kids that we had was definitely a big one, because I know that my parents really struggled with us.
I think the biggest win was the not having the overdraft fees anymore.
Yeah, that was a bitch.
For you, remember there was a period where you had overdraft fees? Because I remember you got a parking ticket and then you ran a red light.
I ran a red light, parking ticket. Then so it went overdraft. And then 2 weeks after that, they charge you again for being. So it's kind of like what I used to say, that that the bank charges you for being poor with the overdraft fees, and then for continuing to be poor, they're gonna charge you again. Because that after 2 weeks, if it's still overdraft, they're gonna charge you again. So it's kind of like, I can see how some people, it's very hard for them to get out of that. It's very hard for them to get out of that. But the fact that we didn't have to worry about that was a huge one.
Yep. And then I know eventually, because we got into the automotive industry, we started getting cars. I know we got a Charger, we got a Grand Cherokee, and then eventually we got a Tesla Model S. And so little by little we were upgrading, and now we have the Hummer EVs.
The Hummer EVs.
So
that's a big one.
Yeah, that's one of the perks about working in the automotive industry. I think you just grow to love cars. The reality of owning a business, I think it's there's a common misconception or belief, especially we were sold on that. You're going to become a business owner. You're going to be your own boss. You're going to work whenever you want, work a little bit, and you're still going to be making a lot of money. And that's not the case. I mean, it is and it isn't.
At least in the beginning, for sure.
At least in the beginning, yeah.
So, yeah. And there's times where you just have to, like, the business requires you to work more. Because I know there was several times, like, it was actually this week. I think I got here, like, around 4:30 and then left around 5. Well, that's 12 hours. That's not too bad compared to other people. But I think if you work effectively, you can work less and get more out. You just have to learn to work effectively, because that's something that in the past that I think, at least for me, I didn't outwork effectively. I worked longer hours, but now that there's less hours that are worked, I think it's definitely a lot more effective, and I think the results are there.
Looking back at our journey, I wouldn't change anything. I know that as we grew up being immigrants, being born in Mexico, we didn't have any social securities until we got into high school. But just going through all that process, it taught us to value certain things, because we didn't have money growing up. We didn't have certain opportunities. When we got into business, we couldn't get certain loans because we were still immigrants. So for me, it just taught me how to appreciate it. And then also looking at my parents' work ethic, it just taught me, you know, what work actually is and not to be lazy. And I think that just shaped who I was when I was growing up. For me, I don't consider myself smart. Like, I think Elon Musk is smart. For me, I see myself as just a Mexican kid who had enough work ethic, who got lucky enough to learn some information, who got lucky enough to just have the parents that I have, the brothers that I have, to where we were able to push each other for better. And I think for me, like, honestly, I don't think there's anything special. I'm not the smartest. I have my stutters here and there. So for me, I think honestly that if I was able to do it, honestly, I think anyone can. They just have to have the drive. That's one thing, that to drive your why. Because you could be the smartest, but you could overthink shit. And nothing is gonna get done. You could be the smartest, but maybe you're lazy. So you need to have that drive. You need to fucking make it happen regardless, no matter what. And I think if you have that, anyone can make it, just with the drive.
That was pretty good.